And welcome to The View from North Fulton. I'm District 3 Commissioner Liz Hausman. Our guest today is Rick Barron, the new Registrations and Elections Director for Fulton County. Mr. Barron comes to us from the Williamson County Elections Department in Austin, Texas, where he was the Elections Administrator for 6.5 years, serving over 256,000 registered voters. He has a big job ahead for the upcoming Fulton County municipal elections. We will talk to him about that and how he is making changes to improve the Registration and Elections Department. We will meet Director Rick Barron when we come back, so stay tuned. Welcome back. With us today is Rick Barron, Fulton County's new Registrations and Elections Director. Welcome to Fulton County.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Glad to have you. I know you most recently were in Austin, Texas.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, for the last 6.5 years, I was the Elections Administrator in Williamson County, Texas. It's a jurisdiction of about 256,000 registered voters. And before that, I was with two different private voting companies, Hart InterCivic and Sequoia Voting Systems, and I did installations of electronic voting systems in a number of different states and counties around the country. And I was with Travis County before that, which is also Austin, Texas.
Now, were you in the Elections Department there as well?
Yes, I was the Elections Management Coordinator there.
Gotcha.
So a middle manager back then.
So we use Diebold electronic voting equipment, so it's similar but a little different than what you used previously?
Yes, all the touchscreen systems have some similarity except for Hart's, which uses a dial, but the Diebold system is a touchscreen, the same as ES&S is Ivotronics, which we used in Williamson County, and Sequoia's system is also a touchscreen system. So I'm familiar with those, the way they operate.
So you're well versed in all the electronic type voting equipment that's out there?
Yes, yes. I will have worked with all four of the major players.
Wow, wow. Wow.
So.
Well, you know, we've had many Elections Department directors since 2007, 6, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And you've been here about 60 days.
Yes.
Tell us about your first couple months on the job.
It's been exciting. I mean, I'm really happy to be here. I've found that my staff, many of the people on my staff are just dedicated individuals. They are always ready to get in there and work hard. We recently had a discovery where we had to enter some DDS applications that were behind, and they all got in there and put in the time, the extra time.
DDS, what is that?
Department of Driver Services.
Okay.
Those are the applications when somebody goes and registers to vote when they get their driver's license.
Okay.
Those applications were behind in our office, and we ended up getting the number down from 14,500 to 500 in about a week. So,
And we're caught up now?
Yes, we're all caught up.
Good, good. So. What else?
I have met with all my staff. We've been having staff meetings in addition, planning for the November municipal election. Been looking at through a lot of the poll worker surveys from previous elections to try to understand issues that have cropped up before, so we can try to improve the performance of the department going forward, and trying to assess the strengths and weaknesses within the department, in the personnel and in procedures. And met with the Secretary of State a couple of times, and had some good discussions there. And I think, right now and then I've been assessing the technology too. Some
Okay.
of the technological things that I think we're going to need. I've met with the city clerks to try to determine how we can better serve them in their elections going forward.
Well, we do have our city elections coming up this November.
Mm-hmm.
Qualifying is ongoing. So we have 14 cities.
Yes.
That's a lot to manage for a county department to put on 14 separate elections. Tell us about your preparation for that.
Well, we have the contracts in place, and we are busy trying to get the voter registration database up and ready for the election. We have the Secretary of State has a new voter registration system, and Fulton County was the last of the 159 counties in Georgia to come online. So we've been working to make that transition from the legacy system to the new system. And that is coming along fine. We've had a few bumps in the road, but we're working to overcome everything that comes up in our path, which is, all you can do. And I think, our preparations are underway. We're getting our temporary workforce in place. I've been participating in some of those interviews to make sure we have a good quality temporary workforce that comes on board that are serious about representing the county and our department, and helping the voters of the jurisdictions that are in this election. We have 10 cities are contracting with us, plus the Atlanta schools.
Okay, so when you say temporary workers, you're talking about the poll workers that will work that 14-hour day on election day?
Some of the, advanced voting workers, and also we bring in some temporary staff in voter registration and voter education. We have different people that fulfill different roles, because we tend to see an increase in the workload around an election time. So we need more than just our regular staff to handle that workload.
Tell me about voter education. What does that mean?
The voter education, we have a few individuals. They will go out to community events, help us advertise advance voting, which begins October 14th.
Okay.
And they will distribute flyers. They will help to register voters. They'll get in touch. The voter education will get put together things for the neighborhood newspapers and for radio, and work with our Department of Communication to get the word out about the municipal elections.
So if a civic group or a festival of some sort is going on, they can contact your office?
Yes.
And you can help them disseminate information about the upcoming elections?
Yes, we can make arrangements to have somebody be there if they'd like. If they need a booth or something of that sort, we can have somebody there.
What's the phone number they should call?
They can call 404-612-7020.
Okay, so we are an early voting state.
Yes.
Tell us about early voting.
Early voting begins in Georgia. There's 21 days of early voting, and basically you can vote anywhere at any of the sites that we have available during early voting, which is different than Election Day, where you have to vote in your precinct. So when you vote early, you can, like if you're in Alpharetta and if you live in Alpharetta but you work in Atlanta, when you are there working, you can stop by, say, the Fulton County Government Center, and you can vote there on your ballot from Alpharetta.
And where are the early voting locations?
We have several early voting locations. There are going to be 3 in Atlanta. There are also going to be there's the Fulton County Government Center and the North and South Annex. There's one in Alpharetta, one in Roswell as well.
Okay, so I would assume that's on our website?
Yeah, all that information is on our website, which
Okay.
is fultoncountyga.gov/RAE, I think.
Okay, well, we'll have that on
Okay.
the screen. But basically, there's how many early voting sites?
8 early voting sites. The advanced voting sites, we're having 8 of those. The 3 that are in Atlanta, there are 3 in Atlanta that will be open on one of the Saturdays.
Okay, so all the locations are not open on Saturday?
No, just those 3 in Atlanta will be open on I think it's the second Saturday of early voting.
Okay, and the hours for early voting?
8:30 to 5.
Monday through Friday?
Monday through Friday.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And what's required for you to come in and vote early?
You just need to have your photo ID. The ID is the same for early voting as it is for Election Day. You can use your driver's license, passport, tribal ID. There is also the state-issued photo ID.
Okay.
And then there's a military ID, and you can also use, there's one more ID that.
Well, again, all that's on the website,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. But bottom line, you can live in Johns Creek and work in Roswell or work in Atlanta, and you can go into an off-site location and get the ballot for your home city.
Yes.
Very good, very good. Well, we'll be right back. We still have a lot more to talk about with our elections director, Rick Barron, so don't go away. We're back with Rick Barron, Fulton County's new Director of Registrations and Elections. We've briefly talked about how you can early vote, but there's also an absentee vote or mail vote. Can you tell us about that?
You can fill out an application up to 180 days before the date of the election, and then around October 11th to the 14th, we'll begin sending out those absentee ballots to the voters that requested them, and then they return those, as soon as they can after they receive them.
Okay, so if someone requests one early, they will not get the ballot until October.
Correct, and they can either get the application at the Secretary of State's website, or they can come into our office, or they can call us and we'll mail them one.
Okay, or they could fax in the application?
Yes, and they can fax it or mail it in.
What about military voting for our soldiers overseas?
For the municipal election, it's the same as for the other voters. For different elections, they do there's a different procedure for that. But it's municipal elections, everyone's the same.
Okay, so if you're overseas, you still have to fill out the application and mail it in?
Yes.
Or can they
Yeah,
call?
or fax it. Yeah, or they can call.
They can actually call over the phone?
Yes.
Okay, what kind of identification do they need to provide if they call?
Well, they need to fill out that application. As long as they're a registered voter of Fulton County, we'll have their information on file.
Okay, so if they weren't registered, then you wouldn't be able to pull them up when they called. Okay.
Correct.
And what's the deadline again for registering to vote?
October 7th.
October 7th, and Election Day is?
November 5th.
November 5th, which is
Yes.
the first Tuesday in November, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. And that was when you would actually vote in your own precinct.
Correct.
And if someone doesn't know which precinct that they vote in, how can they find out?
They can go to our website. Also, they'll be able to call our office and get that information. The Secretary of State also has a My Voter page, which is on the Secretary of State's website on the elections portion of that.
Okay, okay. Now, are the workers on Election Day volunteers, or do they get paid?
They are paid anywhere, depending on the position, from $175 for the day to $275 for the day. Plus, the workers that go to training get a flat fee of $30 for training.
Now, what sort of training do you get to work the polls?
There's a combination of in-person, face-to-face training that's hands-on with the equipment and with the forms. And then we're also developing an online poll worker training tool with the IT department. And we have had online training before, but this year's will be a different type of training that we've developed in partnership with IT.
So, if you were going to be working the polls in, say, Roswell, where would you get trained?
We are going to have some training at the North Annex and at Johns Creek.
Okay.
In Johns Creek. If you're, somewhere in the center, you can probably actually sign up to go to any of them, but whatever's convenient. But we will have training at the Fulton County Center, Johns Creek, and the annexes.
Now, are you still looking for poll workers?
Yes, yes. And if you want to be a poll worker, what you would need to do is fill out an application, which you can get on our website, or you can call our office and we can mail that application to you.
Okay, okay. But you can get training at any of the North Fulton locations, no matter where you are going to actually be working?
Correct.
Okay, okay. Is that a combination with online and actual a class, or do you just do one or the other?
You'll do both of them. There's a couple of positions within the poll workers where you just probably will do online, but everyone else will have online and face-to-face. And sometimes, because of the number of poll workers that we have to train, we recommend that people do the online training and read their poll worker manuals ahead of Election Day.
Gotcha.
There's a lot of information to process at training, and it's easy in maybe if you have 5 weeks intervening between your training day and Election Day to forget the material.
So if you've worked the polls previously, do you have to get retrained?
Yes, there's trainings required for every election, because it's easy. I mean, even people in our office that handle the equipment, certain times during the year, it might take a few minutes, before you remember what you're doing to, set it up and take it down. So it's always good to refresh yourself.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I'm sure you communicate that with our poll workers.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Okay, well, as you know, Fulton County and the state of Georgia have been under the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, since 1963, I believe. There's been some recent Supreme Court rulings that have altered that somewhat as far as what our requirements are. Could you share with our viewers what that means?
Yeah, in Shelby versus Holder, the Department of Justice no longer has jurisdiction over any issues of preclearance. So, for instance, if we need to change a polling location because maybe the school's unavailable, which is something that happens because of construction, where we used to have to go to the Department of Justice to ask for permission to move the polling location from one school to another, or from a school to a church, we no longer have to seek that permission. We can just go ahead and do that. In our office, it saves us time with administrative paperwork. I think when it comes to the big impact is on the state, because they had to go and seek permission for changes in the law, which are much more complex than what we do locally.
So previously, everything that was with regard to the conduct of an election had to be cleared through the Justice Department, correct?
Correct.
So even if a street was moved from one precinct to another for whatever reason, that would have had to been approved?
Yes.
And what was the typical time period it would take to get that done?
Well, it could be months. I mean, it just depends on if it was contentious. You know, if people were battling over where those, you know, if they wanted that street in their district.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think that, you know, it's hard to say what the impact is going to be of that decision in the long term. In the short term, it's a reduction in paperwork for us.
Well, not only is there staff in our department, but you actually have a board of elections, correct?
Yes.
2 members are appointed from the Republican Party and 2 from the Democrat Party.
Correct.
And then a chairman.
Then we have a chair.
And so any change that you make, whether it's minor or large, they have to also approve that, right?
Correct.
So that hasn't changed.
No, I mean you mean with regard to
what's happened with the Supreme Court ruling. You still have a governing body, if you will, that
Yes.
oversees what you're doing.
Yes.
Okay. So that's basically oversight by the public.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other implications from the Supreme Court ruling?
Not locally, not about which we have to worry.
Okay, but in essence, it seems like it might have simplified in some ways your operations.
Yeah, I would say that's correct.
Okay, so in a perfect world, if you were starting from scratch, tell us what you would envision a well-run elections department as being.
So I'm assuming that you've approved my budget request. So I think the main thing that I would like to see in the future is to have many more early voting locations. If there's one thing, you know, I'm from Oregon originally, and when I worked in elections in Texas, I'm not saying Texas did everything correct with regard to elections, but early voting, their laws with regard to early voting were really thought out well. We had, for a county this size in Texas, would have anywhere from 25 to 30 early voting locations.
Wow.
And last November we had 6 here, and from what I understand there were some long lines and a lot of confusion. And I think that the commitment Texas has shown to early voting has really taken the burden off of Election Day, so you don't have that crush of voters on Election Day, and it's made voting more convenient for people. So I would like to see an increase in that. I would like to see some, we desperately need some help desk software to try to take calls on Election Day, track what types of calls we have coming in, and better serve not only the poll workers but the voters that call in, so that we can you know, serve the public on Election Day much better.
Well, it is about serving the public. You're absolutely right in that. Rick, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming to Fulton County. I wish you all the best as you gear up for a big Election Day, and I know you're up for it.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And we'll be right back, and I will have some closing thoughts on our elections department and what we should expect for our next election. Thanks so much. Rick Barron is a seasoned professional in the area of registrations and elections. He was hired after a period of transition in the department with the hopes of getting it back on track. He is charged with making the changes that are necessary to do just that, with the management skills and supervision that the department needs to ensure fair and accurate elections in all of Fulton County. I believe that it is imperative that we restore confidence in our elections for the voters of Fulton County. And I hope that you would agree that we should all expect nothing less. That's my view. What's yours? If you have any questions or concerns in regards to today's topic or any others, please contact my office at 404-612-8213. You can also email me at liz.houseman@fultoncountyga.gov. And we're on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks so much for joining me. I'll see you next time on The View from North Fulton.